Okay. So welcome everyone. We're about a couple after the hour. My name's Ellen Chang. I introduced myself in the chat. Really great to see everyone here. Know a lot of you. I'm looking at the chat. So welcome back. We have Brian Shipley. He just introduced himself in chat, and we also have Blaise Zandoli from the Army SBIR Program Office. What I'd like to do is just kind of go through what we're going to do here. This is really about getting information out to you. So do not be shy in asking questions. We'll have Brian introduce himself, then Blaise introduce himself, and then I'll kick it off with a question so that they can talk about their programs and give us a little bit of context. We'll do about half an hour of that before we jump into questions, but we don't have to be formulaic. Just start posting in the Q&A. It'd be better to post in the Q&A since we're flooding the chat right now. So with that, Brian, may I invite you to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks, Ellen, for inviting me to join you today. My name is Brian Shipley. I'm the Commercialization Program Manager for the Navy, SBIR, and STTR programs. And in my role, I primarily focus on ensuring that we have the policy, processes, and programs in place to help our Navy SBIR awardees commercialize what they're developing within the SBIR program. And by commercialize, I mean get through phase 1, phase 2 processes to phase 3, which is the commercialization of technology. And it's anybody else with anybody else's money then buying that research to continue it, to complete it, to put it into production. So my goal is making sure that we have everything in place to help them make that happen.
Thank you so much. Blaise, over to you.
Hi, I'm Blaise Zandoli. I'm the SBIR Contract Analyst for the Army SBIR program. And my main calling is to facilitate the artificial intelligence and clean tech portfolios within the Army SBIR program. I've also been a bit of an architect for the new Army SBIR program that was officially rolled out in October 2020, but was made effective, the changes in the new organizational structure around specific technology priority areas and our integrated team structure that I'll get into a little bit later in mid-2021. And I look forward to telling you a little bit about how to work with Army SBIR program and some of the possibilities and some of the things not to do or not to pursue, and then fielding as many questions as we have time for. Thanks.
Thank you. So with that, I'm going to get started here. So Donna, would you pull up Brian's slides? And while we do that, so Brian, we know that Navy has a new open topic. We know Congress was looking for new ways to introduce SBIR to maybe a broader community. Could you tell us a little bit about what problem you're trying to solve, or how you actually creatively, how you're approaching open topic?
So thanks, Ellen. So yes, so this is part of a mandate. Navy hasn't traditionally been a part of the open topic process. For those of you who are relatively new to SBIR or don't understand the difference when we talk about open versus conventional topics, for the most part, for the past 40 years, most of the SBIR program has operated under the federal program offices developing statements of need, areas of research, usually specific problems they're looking for innovative solutions for, and Navy has followed that model pretty strictly. This past year in the NDAA, Congress asked the defense agencies and components to issue open topics at least once annually. And in an open topic, what that is you're looking more to bring in commercial solutions or solutions just good ideas. Give industry the opportunity to just give you a proposal for their idea, irrespective of what maybe the Navy might be looking for. Give you an avenue to tell you, hey, we think you need this. And that's basically, in general terms, what I believe they're trying to accomplish with the open topic, giving industry the opportunity to not have to respond to a specific request for something very focused, but create an avenue or a path for industry just to say, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is the product I've developed. I would like you to consider this for the Navy in this specific area. So with that, Navy has put together our own version of what we want to do with open topics, which is what I'm presenting here. So if you go to the next slide, I'll just keep rolling through these. So here's my name and email address. I invite you to email me after this if you'd like to meet and talk about anything specific about the open topic or about commercializing your existing technology using the Navy. I'm happy to talk to everybody. My email address is also on our website, so you can go to navysbir.com and get it from there as well. Next slide. So just so that we're all understand where you can get to our topics and to the various instructions, these are the links, and I'm assuming, Ellen, you're going to make these available to everybody. These are the links that you can get to the DoD and Navy BAAs, the Navy BAA. So Navy participates with DoD through the Department of Defense process. All the components within DoD participate through DoD, and this is where you can get to the instructions. It's basically the overarching guidance and the requirements for submitting a proposal are in DoD's guidance, and then each component or each agent, each service has an amplifying set of instructions. And there's the place where you can get our amplifying set of instructions where they show our specific requirements and most importantly, our topics. It's really important that you read the DoD preface and the component instructions, in this case, the Navy instructions, because that will give you the entire picture of your eligibility and the process you have to go through to participate in SBIR with us. Next slide. So conventional versus open. So our conventional topics always identified a specific Navy problem, a desired technical objective, and an output. So we're basically, we get those problem sets from our acquisition, sustainment, and modernization programs, and they're tied to program offices then that have resources to actually transition it, which is why I think the Navy has one of the highest transition rates across all the DoD component programs and actually across the entire federal program. We have a $500 million program approximately annually, and we transition or commercialize with Navy money $1 billion worth of SBIR products every year. And that's significant. And that is just with what Navy has funded. There's no way to track like what Lockheed Martin buys, what Amazon buys, what's all done in the private sector. We, with Navy money, just do $1 billion worth of transition, buying basically the technology that we've started in SBIR. So our open topics now, what we're doing with open topics is we didn't want to leave it so open that everyone's just throwing us good ideas and we're spending a lot of time trying to find places for good ideas. We worked with our system commands and we defined two somewhat broad mission critical needs. And then we're soliciting proposals to adapt commercial products or solutions to meet those needs, specifically to fill capability gaps in those areas, to improve performance, and provide technology advancements to existing capabilities. So what the open topic process is going to require you to do is understand our mission critical areas, which we give you lots of detail in the open topic, and then at least identify in your phase one proposal what problem you're trying to fix, what you're bringing to us with your technology. Next slide. So we're seeking basically commercial solutions. And what we mean by that is manufacturing readiness level 8 or 9, which is 8 is you're ready for low rate production, initial production, or 9, you've proven low rate production, you're ready for full production. In TRL talk, technical readiness level, we're basically looking for solutions that have been proven in the environments in which they were designed or intended for. So we're not looking in this process to continue R&D on something that has not been proven and then also adapt it to the Navy. We're looking for products that have been proven in the environments in which they were initially intended, and you're proposing that we then use it and pivot it to the need that you're trying to meet in the Navy. If you want to, if you're suggesting COTS or NDI to us, what we want to make clear is that SBIR is not a procurement program, it's an R&D program. So whatever you're proposing to us, we are going to be doing, we're going to give you R&D money to transition it, to refine it, to pivot it to the need that we have proposed, that you're proposing to meet. And our critical mission areas are contested logistics and holistic common operational picture. And our technical focuses in those two mission critical areas are listed there. We had 2 information sessions which talked in greater detail about our mission critical areas, where we had the authors of the topics in those areas actually give 45-minute long presentations on those mission critical needs. And those are available at the link that's shown there if you'd like more information. Next slide. If you're not familiar with SBIR, again, read the DoD preface and Navy instructions. And there's 3 basic requirements for registration that you need to meet. Your company registry at sbir.gov. You need to register in the Defense Innovation Portal, and you need to register with the System for Awards Management, which is SAM. Those 3 basic registrations are absolutely required. The DoD instructions describe the entire process you need to go through, so please see those. And you can see here in the blue box, I'm referencing the Defense Innovation Portal training materials. They have an entire portal of training materials that step you through everything that you need to do to participate in DoD SBIR, which certainly will give you enough information to participate in Navy SBIR. Next slide. I think that's it for me. There's all of our keep in touch information. Our quarterly newsletter in the upper right will keep you posted on everything that Navy's doing. Thanks, Ellen.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. So thanks for your questions. I'm going to let Blaise start first and then start asking and peppering questions and interspersing them. So Blaise, I think Donna has your slides up. Take it away.
All right, thanks a lot. Hi, everybody. Again, I'm Blaise Zandoli. I'm the SBIR Contract Analyst for the Army SBIR program, and I facilitate the artificial intelligence and clean technologies portfolio. Approximately $140, $150 million a year in annual R&D spend. My presentation is I don't want to say, it's a little broader than Brian's. And by the way, Brian and I are friends and colleagues. We've at least cooperated before. So it is possible for the services to cooperate on this sort of stuff. So I will only brief by kind of exception when it comes to the Army's approach to open topics, but like at least 90% of what Brian mentioned is the Navy's approach to open topic is the Army's, but I'll point out a couple exceptions. So there's my contact info, and these slides are all public release, so please, Ellen and team, feel free to distribute. Next slide, please. So Army SBIR went through a radical transformation, and I know some of you who may be familiar with the government and maybe particularly the Army might say, well, when isn't an Army organization going through a reorganization? It seems like a perennial process. This change officially 3 years ago, but effectively 2 years ago, from the Army SBIR program that was principally run out of Aberdeen Proving Grounds in Maryland to being run out of the headquarters Department of the Army, is a radical change. There are many things that we're doing differently. I won't bore you with so many of the things that are under the hood. I will present a couple of different ones, though. One of which is this: we have these priority technology areas. These are the 6. As I mentioned, I facilitate the artificial intelligence on the far left with a couple of what we call core components, basic descriptors of what falls into that big box, and then climate and clean tech in the center. Most of the climate and clean tech stuff, and the 98% of it, is all expeditionary. So it's somewhat mobile, somewhat deployable, somewhat more soldier-led as opposed to, or soldier applicable as opposed to installation, large, 50 megawatt type electric generation systems and so forth. And AI, the Army is relatively new to artificial intelligence, certainly in terms of its use in the field. So there's a lot to learn on that, and thus these different types, the different characteristics of the technical field inform our approach to working with the small business community around those. And then because these are simply priority areas, these 6, that gray box in the bottom highlights the fact that we have this non-aligned. So it's everything else. So we do not just fund these 6 areas and then say to anything else that might not fit these boxes that, well, sorry, the SBIR is not one of our priorities. Well, it's not one of our priorities, but it is something potentially that the SBIR program should get after. Part of the thinking of these, having this structure, is to adopt a more kind of classic portfolio management approach where things are individual R&D efforts, which are the foundation stone of any R&D effort and any transition effort into the Army enterprise, acquisitions or sustainment or something like that. Of course, those are essential. But given an organization's like the Army's structure that historically was rooted in the industrial age, with very strong verticals, so to speak, and not much horizontal, our approach is to balance a strong and appropriate vertical foundation using a horizontal portfolio. So what are the interconnections between different R&D efforts? And our responsibility within the SBIR program is primarily, so somebody's got to be responsible for that, and that's the SBIR program. We are not technical experts, we're not acquisition experts, but we do focus in on the higher to mid-level of how do these different efforts fit together. And I know all the services approach this challenge in their own way. This just happens to be the Army's. And just a quick peek under the hood, each one of these focal tech systems is a team. Anywhere from 30 to 60 Army members spread mostly evenly between Army research centers, who are the technical competencies within the Army, as well as acquisition folks, because in the past, not every R&D effort that was conducted using SBIR money had went beyond an R&D effort. So what is the transition plan? Something that Brian had mentioned. Again, every service faces similar challenges, not exactly the same. Our platforms are a little bit different from the Navy's. And naturally, our approaches, therefore, need to be a little bit different as well. So with the idea for us that each one of these teams of acquisition and research folks who meet periodically ensures, or at least goes in some ways to leveling bubbles of understanding across these wide bucket areas of technology, and 2, that the recommendations to fund X versus Y R&D effort are made more on a team basis, and also that the research center, and so the technical folks and the acquisition folks, are on board with any particular effort before it gets launched, in order for Army to chase Navy in terms of that illustrious transition rate that Brian was referring to. Next slide, please. So I won't go into detail here because you'll have these slides. These are some numbers. It's a graphic that basically shows the road to SBIR financing from the left, traditional SBIRs, for those of you who may not be aware. Phase one, proof of concept, proof of feasibility, the normal entryway into the SBIR program. For the Army, it's $250K, normally 6 months. And I'll get into why I use the term normal a lot. Followed and we usually award multiple companies a phase one because this is generally high risk R&D, different balance between the R&D maybe, but it's generally always high risk. Otherwise, probably shouldn't be doing it. And 3 to 5 companies are the norm for the awardees for the phase one, after which they're winnowed down, usually 2, 3, 1, whatever, 0, it all depends. For the phase two, which is prototype development, you can see the normal numbers there. We include that direct to phase two. I highlight that. I mean, if you were used to dealing with the Air Force, they've been doing direct to phase twos for like 6 years. The Army never did them until last year. So if you're familiar with the Army way that, well, why didn't we do direct to phase twos? Well, just because we didn't do them. And then the idea that the SBIR program in general provides that sequential phase two, which is with 1 or 2 differentiating features, is in essence a second phase two to further develop the prototype. You're looking at the norm in terms of time, 4 or 5 years, sometimes 6, it depends, but usually 4 or 5 years from a normal life cycle, a 1 to an end of a phase two contract. And about, for us, we get pretty close to the Small Business Administration maxims of about a little over 4 mil spread over those 4 or 5 years. That note on the bottom or more, we go just for the past year plus, the Army SBIR program has succeeded, we're batting 100%, to get SBA award size waivers up into the mid-single digit millions. It needs a robust technical justification, but so far, every time that we have found an effort, an R&D effort that needed additional funds beyond the normal SBA limits, we've succeeded in securing those funds. You know, and that's our little mantra on the bottom. The SBIR program cuts its processes to fit reality. We avoid making reality try to fit some bureaucracy. Next slide, please. So real quick, these are the 2 portfolios. I'm just highlighting, you know, my area of responsibility. There's another 4 such portfolios that I mentioned in the prior 2 slides prior. AI and clean tech, you can see this is just some recent stuff. You can see that there's a lot of open topics there. Army our first open topic really was last spring, as in the spring of 22, with some clean tech stuff that I participated in. And since then, we've done 4 other open topics. That we've got this AI open topic, top left, 39 phase 1 awards, 150K 3 months, and 10 million in total funding. So we're keen on these open topics, and when I'm done, when I get to the bottom right of this slide, I'll draw out the couple of areas where Army differs from Navy, but open topics. This Army Tech Marketplace, oh man, I could go on and on about that. It's pretty important towards network platform yet to be built, actually yet to be fully designed, let alone built. For those of you who might be familiar with CDAO's Tradewinds or SOCOM's Vulcan, Navy's, Air Force Vision. I mean, when we did this, the comment about not another DoD innovation portal is I gave up counting when I got to 24 in DoD innovation portals. So network platforms of some flavor intended to connect the DoD organization with private sector folks. We might end up being just another DoD portal, but we hope not. And I'm happy to take questions later about kind of what that means. Our approach is to be as private sector in terms of building the business proposition, so the value creation opportunities of this network platform to connect Army research centers with Army acquisition offices, in order to level the bubbles of understanding and increase the opportunities for collaboration and synergies between these different organizations who usually talk to each other, but not always. And then that's the Army tech part, and then the marketplace is a contract, a vehicle that will, for the small businesses, one, to understand what the Army's working on, two, to directly interact with some of the members of the Army Research Centers and Acquisition Corps, and three, to provide some consolidated, if not facilitated, contracting mechanisms. On the clean tech side, we've just wrapped up a sustainable building materials open topic, 14 mil total awards. We do phase ones on this one, that 250K proof of concept, and then we do these direct to phase 2 awards that I mentioned earlier. And we're planning another open topic that is truly open within the clean tech portfolio for later this year, with about 20 mil in funds budgeted. And sometimes we overshoot in the actual amount budgeted. Sometimes we undershoot. It depends upon the quality of the proposals. Last slide, go ahead. Last meaningful slide. So I'm not going to make a big plug here. This is something we've developed. The Army SBIR program is about changing, clearly the Army SBIR program, but really looking to change the way the Army does innovation in general. And that really focuses mostly, though not exclusively, on those research centers and acquisition programs. This document was published actually earlier this year as a DoD only release. Just this past week, we got clearance to launch it public release. Excuse me. If there's a website down on the link is there on the bottom of the slide. It's the why and the what, as the slide says, of the way the Army SBIR program goes about doing what it does. It's a fair bit of stuff under the hood. Most of it will not be terribly interesting to you unless you're an innovation or diffusion research geek. But there are pointers that explain how our teams work, how we communicate, the things we prioritize. It is not a how manual. It's not a process manual. It won't tell you the forms to fill out and that sort of thing, but it will tell you the why and the what behind the program. That might be relevant to shaping how you approach the Army SBIR program. And again, if you're an innovation geek about how innovation happens, then it might be an interesting read. Last slide, please. So there's all our contact info. My one comment would be, my closing comment is to go back to that open topic and say, so what's the difference between the way Brian explained the Navy? So I think there's two brief differences. One, for us, the open topic is about a very wide funnel. So we want to be, quote, positively surprised by what the small business community can do. Surprise us. We conduct a lot of market research. The Army researchers and acquisition folks are extremely competent and very well exposed, but they're like all, we are limited. So our approach to open topic is surprise us. But like Brian mentioned, we also do our 6 focal area focused, so to speak, or delimited open topic. So we just do an AI open topic, a clean tech open topic, an autonomy open topic, and so forth. We don't do like what AFWorks does, an open topic. Second thing is that it's not the job of the small business to find your transition partner through an open topic. That's the SBIR program's job. You present the exciting technology that you think is relevant to the Army, and you shock and awe us with its applicability and its capability. It's then up to us to work, the Army, not just the Army SBIR program, but the Army in general, to work to find you a transition partner with a transition glide path. I think that last bit is different from the way the Air Force runs their open topics. So thank you for the extra minute or so. I look forward to the Q&A.
Yeah, thank you so much for providing the overview. So everyone, we have a couple of opportunities that are quite different, new. I'm going to start I'm looking through that. We have a lot of Q&A, so I'm going to look through some of these and start get going here. So maybe this is directed to both of you. Seems like a contradiction. TRL 8.9 requires little or no R&D, rather just a fit application. Why that approach? Is that the right way to think about it? I don't know if either one of you would like to take a stab, or Brian?
So for us, you know, the reason we wanted to clearly define that we wanted solutions that were already proven, and we want to spend our R&D then adapting it to the Navy solution that it's going toward, or the Navy capability that it's going to improve. So that's why we stated it the way we did. But this is our first play in open topics, so we're learning a lot from the wording we put in the solicitation. So I'll take that as a criticism. You're not the first to tell me that, and we'll take it into consideration given the conversations we've had. You know, we've already had 2 information systems and 2 AMAs across maybe 400 or 500 people. So we're getting a lot of feedback on how to improve the process. Happy to learn from this, but it's kind of our perspective on this. We did the best we could. We were clear that as a team, we didn't want to open it up completely and just accept everyone's great ideas, because getting 5,000 proposals of everyone's great ideas isn't going to do anybody any good, we don't believe, because you're not going to get awards out, and we're not going to be able to align things to program offices and functionalities quickly enough to make good awards. So we decidedly narrowed it to 2 things right now that were really important to us, which were those mission critical areas I listed. And we tried to make it clear in the language on what we were looking for. So that's how we wound up with this.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, but you know, once you get going with the Navy, presumably if the technology is adapted, there's almost a built-in phase 3. I mean, it's not guaranteed or anything like that, but generally what I understand is that you kind of know who the system commands are, you know what program you're going into. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, it's one of the benefits of the way we have kind of thought about this open topic is that once we are making an award to you, or we've selected you, you're going to be aligned with a customer. And that customer then is going to work with you through the phase 1 and phase 2 process to get you to phase 3. That is unlike what the Air Force's program does, which is really well known. Sorry, my dogs are barking. There's
a bad guy over there.
So can you hear me? It's good? All right, I apologize. Someone came home, who knew? So I think it's different than the way the Air Force does it. We seem to be doing it similarly the way Army is doing it, in that we're going to align you with somebody. It's going to be our responsibility to find that right partner for you. So when you have an award with us, you're going to be aligned to somebody. You're then not going to have to search for the customer. You will have a customer with that award.
Okay. I guess maybe to both of you, how often has the SBIR program been able to successfully match to a transition partner? I guess maybe Brian can ask that. Maybe Blaise, if you could answer that question.
Yeah, I appreciate going first, because Brian, as he mentioned in his presentation, the Navy leads, so at least I don't have to be the weaker story following the stronger one. And then we can build. We'll be the weaker one, and then Brian can talk. He's the stronger one. There's a lot of challenges in how these statistics are gathered. So I won't go into the actual number. It is a lot better than the actual number might lead one to believe, because the Army did not historically make a big deal about tracking what are called phase 3 awards, transitions to post-SBIR funding. But there's clearly was and still is an issue here. Thus the reason why we, basically threw out the old model and created that team-based, that portfolio-based approach that I talked about to address the part where there was not as good a linkage between research centers, because researchers will do research all day long as you give them money for it in some form. And that's good, right? That's a building stone for sure. It's a necessary element, but that's not real money. And we don't want to work with small businesses for whom a series of relatively small amounts of SBIR funding is the raison d'etre. We want to work with companies that are looking to knock it out of the ballpark in terms of revenues. So it's a little bit of a story to say that the Army is in the weaker end of the official categorization of transition, and it's part systemic, and part because we don't measure it very well. Now over to the stronger case.
So I think why we've been successful is that in our conventional topics, we purposefully align the topic to a program office and a sponsor who has the people and the resources to transition it. And you're aligned with that person who likely wrote the topic and who wants the research done and wants the result of good research. So that relationship is created immediately with our Navy conventional topics. In the open topic process, because we don't know what proposals we're going to get for what kind of technology, we will align you to somebody and make awards that have alignment to program offices and people and resource sponsors to transition it, which is why we wanted to just focus on a couple mission critical areas so we could at least have our bucket of resource sponsors available and ready to evaluate with us and position these proposals to the right people.
Thanks, Brian. So maybe going back to you, Blaise, what's the targeted TRL range for the Army SBIR open topic? Is it same as Navy's? No, you don't have it?
No, we don't target TRLs, period. End of story. What we target interesting, exciting stuff that has a glimmer of a hope of transitioning into an acquisition program, so it can be so it can be delivered to the hands of the warfighter. That's the catchy way to phrase it. We do shape the portfolio. Remember, we're only 2 years old, right? And the average SBIR, as I said, is like 5 years. So we're not even through a full SBIR life cycle in terms of this new model. So to Brian's point earlier about how open topics, we're still learning how to do them. I mean, as I said in my talk, our first open topic was last spring of 22. So we've done, I think, 5 total. That's not a big sample size. One of the ways that we shape our portfolio, our investments, is we take an 80-20 rule. So 80 is transition partner, research technical folks, a government representative who provides oversight, monitoring, assessment of the small business's conduct of the R&D effort. Transition partner, usually an acquisition program with much bigger dollars available that are not R&D color of money, and that team within those 6 portfolios comes together from the beginning of the SBIR proposal, even before it goes public, and then with the intercession of the SBIR program. We monitor, and that team stays on that topic for its life cycle. Again, 2 out of 5 years on average. So we're still a little early days. So 80% of our investment portfolio goes in that direction, kind of standard linkage. 20% can shape requirements. So there's a lot of stuff in the emerging tech space for which the Army has no requirement, and therefore there can be no acquisition. Can be no acquisition unless Congress puts a special appropriation, or there's a Herculean Army senior leader effort that says find money to figure out how to do this. That is not that's necessary, but that's more of a crisis or limited way to approach funding and fielding of equipment. Therefore, we devote roughly 20% of our portfolio to efforts that shape the requirements writing. Like, for example, there are some requirements necessary for clean tech type applications, vehicle electrification, fusion in a suitcase, all that sort of stuff. We don't have requirements for a lot of that yet. But a clean tech, because it's more hardware focused, generally has relatively a lot of requirements compared to AI. The Army has very few requirements for AI. Therefore, generally speaking, the Army can't acquire AI. Therefore, a number of organizations need to do things to support the writing of requirements. The Army SBIR's role in that is through open topics, not exclusively, but that whole wide funnel positively surprises with what you can do type of approach is where the Army, where we spend a lot of that 20% that is specifically focused on not necessarily transitioning, but that will shape requirements. I mean, this is transparent in the process for those companies who are engaged in that. We are transparent in the process. If there is no chance of transitioning, we're not going to do that. It's more of a throttling of the risk profile between transition and shaping requirements, such that it can be very interesting for a company to participate in an R&D program that has maybe a long shot of transitioning in the 2 to 5 year time frame, but for whom, if they're playing a long game, can participate in helping the Army shape its requirements writing.
Thank you. So given that, then here's a question. I'll paraphrase it. How really gets down to so if you're non-traditional, you have this product technology, you're unsure of the fit to whatever the use cases. So how would you recommend, either of you, both of you, recommend identifying military use cases ahead of throwing spaghetti at the wall?
Yeah, it becomes more challenging. I think I think in that case, you have to listen to in this case, you could look at our information sessions for our 2 open topics. They gave pretty detailed descriptions of, what they were looking for in those mission critical areas between those 2 information sessions. And then the topic itself gives pretty good guidance. And then I would encourage you to then also reach out to the topic author via the open Q&A through DoD, which is called the CITIS tool, SITIS, and ask those questions. Beyond that, it's doing your own homework. You know what you have, the technology you have. You must have an inkling of what problem you think it could solve for us, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for your understanding of, within these mission critical areas, what is it that you have, and how's it going to solve an issue in these areas. And you likely have enough of an understanding to talk to that in a 10-page proposal.
I guess who said that, there is plethora of information on the web. So I guess when we send out our notes, etc., we'll provide some ideas out there. Feel free to kind of re-engage with us. Blaise, do you have an answer? How you can think about it?
Yeah, I would say, again, not to repeat stuff that Brian already said. Yes, agree. All of that is great. What I would add is, again, this is kind of the purpose of our open topics. Wide funnel, positively surprise us with stuff. It's then on us. I mean, not exclusively on not exclusive the Army SBIR program, certainly, and not exclusively the Army. You got to do like any other market penetration approach. You got to do your market analysis, your customer network mapping, and all that sort of stuff. Just like with any other customer, it's a little different type of customer, but it's still a customer. But it is incumbent on, if you're awarded an Army SBIR phase 1, DB2, whatever, open topic. You should know, but you should also demand that the technical point of contact and through them, the Army SBIR program are doing what I said earlier in my presentation, which is that it's our job to find you the transition partner. Brian mentioned how the Air Force does it a little differently. the Air Force and the Navy are common in this, is that we want you to focus on your core competency, which better be delivering the best and brightest technology that's out there, period. We don't need you to be an expert, especially as a non-traditional, on how to find an Army customer. You need to be a team player in that, do the due diligence and market analysis and studies, network mapping and so forth that Brian referenced. But we're here to help you do that because we really want you to focus on your core competency. So that's where I would look at. But my second point, and I'll go back to that Army Tech Marketplace thing, is that this is a problem. This is a problem for everybody. How do you do market research of an organization, of a huge organization like DoD, let alone a component of it like the Army, or I should say the Army, let alone the whole DoD? How do you do that research as a non-traditional? I mean, if you already know the answer, it's simple. But then you're not a non-traditional. So part of the Army Tech Marketplace is to create that using a network platform that hopefully adds at least as much value as some of the other DoD innovation portals, to be able to help you find Army customers, not simply through scrolling potential contract opportunities. That's good, but also by learning in a centralized way what the Army's working on, what its priorities, what is it not working on, and why did it walk away from something? I mean, obviously all at the public release level. So we recognize that this is an issue for you to do your market research, and Army Tech Marketplace is the program, SBIR program is designed to help you do that to the extent of our resources. And Army Tech Marketplace will, in the near future, be another resource.
One add for me. So Blaise said something, it made me realize I didn't want what I said to be misunderstood. The Air Force in their process requires industry to identify a customer at some point. When I told you in your phase 1 proposal, I want you to identify what problem you're trying to solve, I did not mean to imply that we're asking you to find a customer. I meant you have to be able to talk about what you're proposing to us in the context of the topic, the mission critical need, and at least understand it to that degree on how your deployable satellite would be used to meet the description of, this mission critical area. That's all I'm saying. We're not saying you need to identify a customer, but talk to us in your proposal about how what you're proposing to us is going to meet the need as described in the topic.
The general use case.
Right, general use case, right.
Here's
not
a couple, probably get off this stage. We want to make sure we're closing on time. So if a company has a directive phase 2 that supports some of the objectives in any of the open topics, but it doesn't directly answer an open topic, and I guess that's probably subjective. Is that fair game to propose that?
For me?
Yeah.
For Navy? So and we've gotten this question several times. I think the key here is that if you have done work previously in the SBIR program, whether it's a phase 1 or phase 2 or directed phase 2, we want it to be far enough along that it's been proven in the environment in which that R&D was done, and you're bringing to us and can describe to us in the proposal, this is what we did, this is what we did operationally, we were able to prove this, whether you had commercial sales or not, doesn't matter, but that it's been proven in that environment, then yes, because then we're not spending our R&D dollars finishing the research on that previous project to get it to a point where we can then adapt it to the Navy need. We're taking that and we can work through phase 1 and phase 2, adapting it to the Navy need. We're not looking to continue R&D from other programs. We're looking to take completed solutions and spend all of our phase 1 and phase 2 efforts on adapting it to the Navy need.
Okay, Blaise, anything to add? If not, I do have other questions coming up.
No, we're TRL agnostic. This is a difference between the Army and the Navy Open. This is the question is not, I don't believe, terribly relevant to the Army because we're TRL agnostic. We want to be positively surprised, sort of. Okay.
So one question's on TABA. Do any of your programs offer TABA or support TABA for the open topic?
So for our open topic, we're not allowing TABA in phase 1 because it's such a quick turn. In phase 2, you can request TABA, but if you do, then you're singling yourself out from all of our transition programs, because I have 3 transition programs I'd rather offer you instead of you taking TABA, because I think I can give you more than what your TABA can give you in phase 2.
So for the Army, we don't preclude TABA at any stage for any type of topic. However, what Brian said about we believe that there is a stronger path. But if the company knows best, so if they believe that they're one of our providers, but if the company feels for some reason that TABA is more appropriate, then just as long as you fill out the paperwork and ask for it correctly, we're cool with that.
And I should know that, I don't know, let me give one more distinction, and Blaise can comment on how they do it. For Navy open topics, I have 8 open topics because of the way we've structured it between the system commands who are participating. So there's actually 8 open topics. A firm can only submit 1 proposal to each topic. You can't do multiple proposals to a topic. Blaise, how do you do yours?
Same. 1 proposal per company per open topic.
I guess for the Navy, you could do 8.
Yep, because we have 8 topics, right?
That's a lot of work. All right, let me read this one out. So Brian, seems like very interesting, as industry has pockets of technologies that need support to realize very advanced integration. So I guess they're commenting on your thing. How is, if you're thinking about integration or even adaptation, what's the best way to move the idea forward?
What's the best way to what? I'm sorry.
How best to move this idea forward is the specific.
If it's not appropriate for the open topic, then I would say contact me. We can have a meeting. I can give you some other suggestions, but the Navy has focus topics or conventional topics all through the year. We have another solicitation coming out with another couple dozen topics in 2 weeks. So there may be opportunities there. Specifically, the Office of Naval Research has an open BAA outside the SBIR program to which firms can propose technologies and ideas. I would also suggest you reach out to our Naval X organization. That organization is in place to make connections between industry and government. So Naval X and our tech bridges might be able to help you. The tech bridges are locations throughout the country where you can engage with them in specific technology areas. So if you look up Naval X and you'll see the tech bridges, you can see the technical areas that each tech bridge focuses on. And that might be a door to get into the Navy.
Thank you. That's really good advice for everyone. I think all the services have something like that. So worth exploring. This is the get off the stage, probably simple question directed to you and Blaise. So maybe mostly Brian, we are developing Med XR and telerobotics, digital twinning simulation for DoD and space, probably mostly for the space sector. Can it translate to the Navy?
I would say likely yes. What I would suggest is going to our Navy search site. It's navysbirsearch.com, navysbirsearch.com. And that site is all of our awards for the past 20 years, awards, not topics. And I would put some keywords in there and see what work we're doing in that area. And then you can get a better idea of how much work, what kind of work, the contractors that are doing the work, and get a better feel for what we're doing in that area. Because off the top of my head, I can't tell you exactly what, but yes, I think it does have applicability to the Navy.
Yeah, thank you. So I would really want to thanks to both of you for your time and helping us get the word out. What we propose to do is we're taking this as a recording. We have a transcript. We'll be also sending out your slides and then pointing to your websites. And so I imagine a lot of folks will be contacting both of you. So hopefully that's That's good. Be ready for an email onslaught. That's all I can say.
Absolutely.
So
Happy to take
thanks
it on.
again. Yeah. So any parting shots before we close?
Go Navy. Best
Go Navy.
commercialization record. Come join us.
Thank you, everybody, for your time, and definitely, if you want to reach out about Army SBIR, please use all of the contact, not just mine, but all of the contact in the slideshow. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks,
And we
Ellen,
have
so much for
several links
organizing
here.
this.
You're welcome. Welcome. Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.